Okay, so we're just waiting for the last couple of people to arrive. Uh, like always, right? When you have a free webinar, many people book and not many turn up. When you have a paid webinar, not many people book, but they mostly turn up. The joys of being a fundraising advisor in the startup scene, I think it's the same with anyone, no matter what product or service or sector they're in. I'll just flick this onto presentation mode. Okay, let's kick off. So, just in case, I've had situations recently where, for some strange reason, I lose my internet completely or it lags, even though I'm coming to you today from Singapore. Should be a great country, great infrastructure, but yeah, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just our little flat or our apartment here having problems with Wi-Fi connectivity. For whatever reason, I've left my email address and my cell phone, which also doubles as WhatsApp and WeChat, etc., Signal, Telegram, you know. So just copy those down now in case the feed drops out. And if that happens, worst case scenario, let's call it off and contact me by email and we'll reschedule a one-to-one call. Don't think it'll come to that, but you know, the old Scouts motto, be prepared. Okay, and the usual legal warning, it's about content. I'm sure it doesn't apply to yourself, but just in case, obviously the material that I'm presenting today is my own intellectual property, my own IP. So I'm okay for people to take photographs or, you know, copy things in terms of a picture here, a picture there. What we don't want, of course, is someone recording this on their side as well and then editing and everything out and putting their name in there and saying that's their work and going off and running fundraising webinars. I mean, obviously you can give it a try. You won't get far because you need to have the credibility, but it's there. It's a legal notice, you've been told. So I hope not to see my content up there with different people's and companies' names on the internet. And if I do find it, I'll obviously be tapping you on the shoulder. Okay, so what am I about? What's my big vision, my mission statement? Well, at 61, I probably should be thinking about fishing, four-wheel driving, retiring, I don't know, pursuits that are maybe considered to be um, less demanding, less ambitious. I wouldn't know what that means. I'm not a normal person, I'm afraid to say. So I'm actually at 61 looking to figure out how I'm going to get the most out of the next 10 years and maybe the next 20 years, having finally arrived at a point in my life where I feel I've got so much to give. And I guess I'm at this point in my life finally able to use every minute, to enjoy every minute, to plan and to deliver and to get the most out of every day. And so I've taken on an even bigger, if you like, a big hairy goal. I want to start now, and in the next 10 years, I want to have done at least helped at least 50 startups a year. I mean, ideally, that number would maybe increase to 100 as time goes on. But at the moment, I'm helping maybe 10 a year. I'd like to ratchet that up to 50, and like I said, eventually, if I could, even 100 a year, so that the multiplier effect is that over time, those companies will employ more people. Those companies will pay taxes. That tax goes to the government, goes back into the community in the form of services, facilities. So, yeah, the way I look at it, you put 10 years of effort into this and let it run, then in 20 years, who knows, I maybe have created, indirectly at least, 100,000 jobs. I may have created up to 20 billion in tax revenue. and that could have created maybe 6 billion in disposable income. So you've got to dream big, you've got to play a bigger game, and that's where I'm coming from. And that's why you're here, hopefully, to see what I have to offer and maybe get your help to get yourself going to make sure you're one of those companies. Okay, let's get into it. Let's dive in. What I'm going to cover today is I'm going to give you 90 minutes, I'm going to give you 30 years of my experience and my own personal trials and tribulations condensed into bite-sized hacks, bite-sized chunks of information, nuggets, if you want to call them. And all this is coming from first-hand experience. So I'm book smart. I'm not book smart, sorry. I'm street smart. I mean, yeah, okay. I've got a bit of book smarts in me as well. Done a bit of research over the years. Did my bachelor's degree late in life. Didn't go to school. Didn't go to university after school. Dropped out of school. But 10 years later, got into university as a mature age student and learnt business, finance, whatever the standard bachelor's degree. But I really don't count that as being helpful, if you like. I'd already done a lot of business before then. I was already successful before I actually got my bachelor's degree. And as my father used to say, back in school, don't let your schoolwork or your school get in the road of getting a good education. Think about that. So bottom line is I condensed all that knowledge and learning about starting up companies, funding companies, raising money for companies, as well as the last 5 years or so of mentoring, advising, working with various startups, various startup programs, like being a mentor at Startup Bootcamp or mentor at 500 Startups. And I've specifically chosen to take all that broader knowledge and focus it on the fundraising journey, what every founder has to go through. After you put your own money in, after you started the company, what happens then? How do you grow? You need capital from friends and family. Yourself, you're tapped out. You have to go outside of your comfort zone, outside of your circle. And you have to convince investors who don't even know you, right? Complete strangers, that they should invest in you. They should invest in your vision, your idea. So that's what this is all about. Getting you to the point where you can get funding so that you can actually go through that barrier that holds so many founders back and succeed. Be one in 200 founders that gets a combination of angel and venture capital money. That's how hard it is, right? 1 in 200 actually succeed in getting funds from VCs, venture capital firms, to take their dream through the minimum viable product stage, to go live, to start getting their customers, to start growing their user base or subscriber base, and then to finally take off and start getting those, $1, $2, $10 million revenue targets. And eventually, of course, everyone's target, probably not everyone, but a lot of people these days, is to become a unicorn, right? $1 billion company. So I'm here to help you. I believe that that's what I can do. And I'm a great collector of quotes, love quotes. And the quote that seems most appropriate here about when you're on that journey and finding someone to help you, to guide you, is one by, some people say it's by a guy called Jim Rohn. Other people quote Tony Robbins. But the quote's the same: success leaves clues. Okay. So who's this webinar for? Who's it not for? In a perfect world, in an ideal situation, your company already generates sales revenue. Your company's ready to scale, and your company's valuation should be somewhere in that 1 to 5 million range, perhaps more. And as a problem, as a pain point, you as the founder or CEO, the main point or pain point or problem you probably face or should face is that of time. Meaning, you've got, you know what you're doing, you've got your company on the right track, got a good team, you're doing the right thing, traction, you're getting traction, you're getting sales, or at least getting momentum towards sales. And the only thing that's holding you back is capital to grow, right? You need to grow fast. So in an ideal situation, you're coming to me or you're coming to this webinar today because your main problem is you can't split yourself, you can't clone yourself, you haven't got time to be driving sales and driving fundraising, if that makes sense. This probably isn't a good webinar for you, and I'm happy if you drop off. If you've already raised, let's say, $1 million to, you know, something like that, more than $1 million already in, say, a large pre-seed or maybe a small seed round, if you've done a bit of fundraising, is my point, you know how to make this work. And all you need to do is figure out how to expand your base and tap more people to maybe do a bigger round. So yeah, if you're already a sort of an expert at fundraising, I don't think I'm going to tell you anything you don't know. You can still happily join, happily stay here. You might learn something. And I'm giving away some great templates at the end for free anyway. But the best, and sorry, the people who are going to get the most out of this from me will be people who find fundraising stressful, just the word, don't really want to do it, understand they have to be involved, but would prefer someone else to do the heavy lifting and basically bring them in when needed. So look, straw poll, as we say, raising hands, or using a little icon there in Zoom to raise your hand. How many on the call are raising funds right now? Okay. And how many have raised more than $1 million before? All right, not too many. Okay, good. Okay. By the way, just another quick question. How many of you today are business owners and have a product versus a service? So how many product people, just type in P, and how many service people, type in S, please. All right, services, products, bit of a mixture. What you'd expect, 50-50, right? Okay, good. All right, let's move on. All right, so what's in it for you? The old, if you put it the other way, the question most people ask anyone who's actually trying to help them, maybe they've got a product or service and they're coming to someone on a call, the first question that comes into most people's minds is, what's in it for me? You know, W-I-F-M, what's in it? Sorry, W-I-I-F-M, what's in it for me? So you're probably asking the same thing, right? What's in it for you? I think 5 takeaways from today should be, if I was on your side of the screen, I'd be saying you should go away from this webinar knowing and understanding when it is the right time to raise external funds versus perhaps when you should keep on pushing and scraping and bootstrapping and just funding it yourself. I think you should go away with the second takeaway, which would be why you need a strategy that follows a structured process to fundraising as opposed to just winging it. Third thing would be how important your pitch deck is, your investment deck or pitch deck, to actually getting in the front door of investors, whether they're angels, even friends and family, to be honest, but angels you don't know, private investors, and venture capital investors, corporate venture capital partners. How important your pitch deck is to getting someone's attention in that organization, and then getting past that point to the next point, which is maybe then considering whether you are worthy of a live pitch in the COVID times, a Zoom call, or post-COVID, or in some countries, where you're opening up now face-to-face call, or face-to-face meeting, I should say. I think the fourth thing would be what sales and marketing and legal resources, probably add financial resources as well, because there's other bits and pieces of kind of like crossover you're going to need in that whole fundraising cycle. And from my perspective, the last thing, and probably one of the most important things, would be, what are the traps? What are the common mistakes that founders make? You may know them. You may know other founders who've gone through similar issues in fundraising. What things do people do wrong that put them either so far behind, or whether they don't maybe realize it at the time, literally cause them not to get funded? So they'd be the 5 takeaways that I think I'd be expecting you to have after going through this webinar with me today. Oh, and speaking of quotes, don't you find that it's so true, right? That if you do manage to get money, if you do manage to get investors, your friends, family, or even other founders are going to say you're lucky, right? Oh, geez, you're lucky. And I always laugh and say, mate, it's got nothing to do with luck, right? This is one of my favorite quotes about this, going right the way back to the Roman times, from a guy called Seneca. And that's, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. In other words, you make your own luck by preparing well and then putting yourself out there, or at least putting messaging and marketing out there to the universe, so that someone can see what you've done and then maybe like it and then contact you and then eventually become an investor. So it's got nothing to do with luck. But it's amazing how many people don't see that and just think you're lucky. Okay, what are you up against in the COVID pandemic time? And we're still in the COVID pandemic time, even though it's such an unbelievably uneven playing field. I mean, some countries are saying already that they're open for business, and it's almost going to be, air travel is going to resume soon. But even though air travel might not be happening internationally, they've already got their domestic air travel worked out. So people are doing businesses, going cross country, going interstate, having meetings. Other countries are still in some form of a kind of like a lockdown. And even though you can travel, people are still doing everything virtually. So, business is going on, fundraising is going on, investing is going on, but, and there's a big but, there are some issues, but there are also some benefits in doing the fundraise now. Last year was a bit of a disaster. I mean, most people who tried raising funds last year realized that it took, it seemed to be harder to get people to call back initially. And then it took a lot longer to get their full round done. So instead of like 6 months, it was taking maybe 9 months, sometimes last year, to do a good sized seed round. I think this year it's coming back so far to maybe 6, 7 months again, but up to 9 months, still kind of, I'm seeing that happening. It was last year, it was in 2019, quite common that you'd be sort of facing about a 1 in 100 chance, or 1% chance of getting some venture capital money if you're doing a seed round. So one in out of every 100 startups were being seen as being venture ready, or at least attractive to a venture fund. I think that number's more like 1 in 200 at the moment, at least in the early stages of 2021. Might stay that way for a while. So 0.5% of everyone who's going out there looking for venture funds is likely to get. Partly that's due, though, of course, to the fact that, and this is a reality that most founders don't maybe consider, not every business is a bad business because it doesn't get funded by venture capital. It's just that its metrics, the business's metrics, don't allow a venture capital investor to invest and still make their targets. Venture money needs to have a certain return, and that return only comes from certain business models, particularly models like fundraising as a service, FAS, where it's really subscription based. So they're basically able to generate incredibly quick growth once they get going. And so their monthly recurring revenue, their MRR, and their annual recurring revenue, their ARR, is able to be predicted and modeled so that, they look at 1 year and sort of like, if they get 1 year's growth, they can pretty well lock in, 2 and 3 years, and hence the valuation they can see rising over time. So, the venture capital model requires quite high return on investment, ROI, over time. And that's why not every startup, every business that every startup has is going to be considered to be attractive to a venture capital investor. It doesn't mean it's not a good business, but it does mean that if you understand what a venture capital wants in terms of ROI, and if you can't see how your business will generate those sort of returns, or put another way, you prefer to have a business which is growing quite well and may become a 20, 30, $50 million business one day. But that's considered by you to be okay and a success, and you're happy with that. And it does generate great returns for the investors, and it does create jobs, and it does do well for the community. That's all good. But I'm just saying, you got to understand that if you want large amounts of money, 1 million, 2 million, and if the venture people won't invest in you because your business model, your returns, your future doesn't look like it will sustain a venture investment, then you really have to work harder to get more private money, angel investors, maybe corporate venture capital. And that's fine. Once you know that, that's where you should go fishing. But if you know that, don't send out hundreds and hundreds of emails to venture capital and then wonder why they don't respond well or don't respond at all, right? So, yep, that's really what this is about. And again, going back to my love for quotes, the one that seems to be appropriate here is, the harder I work, the luckier I get. But I think what I'm trying to say is, at the very start, before you even start reaching out to investors, you've got to work smart, not hard. You've got to understand what works, what doesn't work, and then focus on those pools of capital that will be impressed and receptive and friendly towards you, and don't focus on pools of capital that will look at you and say, you're not a fit mate, sorry, we can't help. All right. So, okay. So, if you've done this, I don't know whereabouts on your journey you might be. Maybe you've gone past the foundation stage and you do have a team. You've done your proof of concept. You maybe have done, hopefully, what we call a minimum viable product, meaning you've developed the app. It's being beta tested if it's an app, or you've created a prototype product and people are looking at it, using it. Maybe you've even got users who were prepared to pay for, say, the beta model, the beta version of the model of the app, or the prototype of the product. And so you're out there getting feedback, seeing what's going on, logging all that, being prepared to sort of take that information and if necessary, make more changes, bring out a second version. That's all good. But if you're a sales and marketing person, if like you're the CEO and your background and really what you're good at is sales and marketing, or sales or marketing, that's great. If you are, the CTO, you're the CEO, but really what you are is you're the person that has the background in computer science or engineering, and you understand the product inside out. Or if you're just very good at the product, designing, right? You're kind of like the conceptual person for the product, and that's where you kind of your whole history, your whole background, maybe in corporate before coming into your own startup or previous startups is. All that's great, all that's fantastic, but doesn't that sort of make you think if you're good at that, then you can't be good at that plus fundraising, because fundraising, unless you come from a corporate finance background, a banking background, investment banking background, fund management background, in which case it'd be highly unlikely you're probably starting a startup. If you don't come from that background, then this is basically like someone talking to you in a foreign language. You know? It's literally something that's foreign to your understanding of the world. And so if you're an expert doing what you do, then normally when you want someone's help in another area that you don't know, what do you normally do, right? You look around for an expert in the area that you need help with, and you hire them, or you retain them, or you at least try to, suck some information out of their brain for free. But either way, you look for help, and you look for an expert, someone who knows what they're doing. So that's really what this is about. I'm an expert in what I do, and I only do one thing at the moment, and that is fundraise for startups, because I've gone through the whole process of starting my own companies, running my own businesses, and now I'm just focusing on helping people get their business and get funding. So it seems to be a win-win. You could do what you do best, I can do what I do best, and the sum of the parts is a much, much better aligned and more synergist arrangement. But how difficult it is when you're on the inside to actually see that and understand that, right? A quote by Richard Branson comes to mind, I've put on this slide: how slim the line is between determination and stubbornness. So I think you understand what I'm saying. All right. I don't like blowing my own trumpet. In fact, that's one of the problems I've always had in life, that I don't actually self-promote. And I think that comes from me being born as the only son, the youngest in a family of 6. I've got 5 sisters older than me, born into a very poor family. I mean, dirt poor, like church mice, in a country area on a farm in Queensland, Australia, having to start work at 4, 5. Before I started school, I started work. You had to work to pay your way on the farm. And I think because of that, I've always been a little bit of the opinion that, my value was less than it actually was. So I don't promote, and I tended not to blow my own trumpet. But in this particular world, the startup world, I've got experience that with 61 years of age, doing this for 30 years, which a lot of people just don't have. And so I started realizing that once people understand where I'm coming from, that I'm actually in this to help, because I don't want you as startup founders to be one of the 99 or 198 who actually don't get to live out their dreams. Then if I tell you what I've done and what I've been through, I think you'll understand how I can help, how what I've gone through can maybe align with what you're going through, and between us, your life, your journey can be enriched, and at least you can live out and succeed to live out your dreams. So I've started up a bunch of companies over the years. I mean, I started my first company in Vietnam when I was 33 in 1993. I had just become, a previous couple of years, I'd become the general manager of a 5-star hotel in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. I'd left Australia. I left Australia in 1990. First time overseas, working overseas, straight to Vietnam. Just opened up after being a communist country all those years, and all of a sudden opened up. They kind of changed their perspective to become socialist and kept their communist political ideology, but opened up economically. And so there I was running a hotel in the middle of a otherwise rather broken down, somewhat um, depressing, but and yet exciting economy in Ho Chi Minh City. So after starting up and working on 5 different companies or joint ventures in Vietnam, I've moved around. I've worked then since and done business in Hong Kong, in Thailand, in Philippines, obviously in Singapore where I am now, in Switzerland, in Germany, in the United Kingdom, and in the USA. And to get to where I had to go, I thought about it, and exact numbers not easy, but I know I've pitched way north of like over 1,000 investors in that period. Like, I don't know, it could be several thousand, but let's say bottom line 1,000, even if that was not the full figure, maybe it's a lot more. Just means that I've gone through this process with different people from different cultures over and over and over again, and that's given me a benefit. I understand much more now, of course, than I did when I started, obviously. I've also invested in startups, my own, but also other people's, other companies in the last 5 or so years. It's been a bit longer, but let's focus on 5 to 6 years, since about 2015. And they were mainly in the fintech sector, admittedly, although more recently I've explored getting into startups in the ag tech sector, the biotech sector, and broadly speaking, anything I'm looking at these days has to have an impact focus. So it has to be an impact focus startup. But the reason I mention this is it gives me the benefit of knowing what I've done. It gives me the benefit of seeing what all these other founders do. And I get approached by 20 to 30 founders every month. And of the 20 to 30, I can help one a month. Really help as in either invest in, mentor, advise, fundraise. I can do one. And that's very difficult to do because I want to help more. But that's the reality, right? I don't want to take on more than I can comfortably deliver. And I always want to deliver 110%. The old story, right? You should under promise and over deliver, not the other way around. So one of the things that comes up over and over again is, look, I don't think there's any mistakes that you can make that I haven't made. And you've got to be prepared to make mistakes, take risks and make mistakes. It's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing as long as you learn. I still make mistakes, not big ones. No longer do I make mistakes that could literally ruin me, like be responsible for my financial disaster, my financial ruin or bankruptcy. Like I used to. I was willing to roll the dice when I was younger and take big bets that would have made me a lot of money, but it also could have completely wiped me out. At 61, you don't do that. But I still make mistakes because I'm still willing to sometimes make decisions which are fairly quick without full knowledge, without full research, just go for it. And because of that, sometimes good example, employ the wrong person or go with the wrong partner. Perhaps, use the wrong developer. I mean, these are small mistakes, small setbacks. I'm not saying they could be, they could be avoided, but I'm not saying I want to avoid them because I believe in getting in and starting something at say 60 or 70% right and not trying to make it 100% right before you launch. So I'm making mistakes that I'm okay with. And usually I end up coming back and revising it, refining it, getting someone to replace it or whatever. It's okay. It works out. But I'm just saying, you can make mistakes even at 61, and you've got to be accepting of that. You've got to be willing to make mistakes. So I think there's a saying here that kind of really one of the few times that it resonates so truly. At 21, I got my private pilot license. I was working, earning money, good money, saving money, single, no family. And I invested 35,000 Australian dollars back in 1980, 80 into 81. $35,000 was a lot of money back then to get my private license. and then another 25 or 30-ish, actually could have been a bit more than that, if I remember rightly, to get my commercial license, commercial pilot license. So, and I used it for many years privately, never actually entered the airline industry, always wanted to be a pilot. Then turns out that it's hard to get into Qantas, the Australian carrier, if you had corrective lenses. Didn't know that at the time, but I still love the flying, and it's the one time in my life that I can safely say there's no comparison to being up there on your own in a plane, in charge, totally reliant upon yourself. Amazing thing, great for your confidence. But there's a saying: there are old pilots and there are bold pilots, but there are no old, bold pilots. What's that mean? You still take risks, but you take calculated risks as you get older. True, right? Okay. All right. Your story and my story are similar in some respects as founders, but your story is unique, and people, investors, want to know your story. When investors look at whether or not they will invest, there's people who talk about the different order of priorities of the things that they look at. But I think it's safe to say that whether they're an angel investor or a venture capital investor, at some point, your story, who you are, why you are who you are, what you've done, how you got there, that's one of the critical factors in them feeling like, besides everything else, they want to spend time with you, they want to engage with you, they want to invest with you in you, because once they've invested, it's a 5 to 7 year, perhaps even 10-year relationship. I mean, I'm sorry to say that that can be longer than a lot of normal relationships, personal relationships. So they're very interested in who you are and your story. So be prepared to open up, right? To kind of like bare your soul a bit and give people a look deep down inside into who you are and why you are like you are. It's some people find that difficult. They want to be somehow reserved, and they don't want you to sort of get the full dose, the full strength version of you. But I think that'd be a mistake. So don't hold back. Be genuine. The one thing about this that is 100% accurate, 100% guarantee is you are a unique individual. There's no two yous, right? Unless you're a twin, which case there is. But even twins are different. So don't forget that. That's important. Look, I find this, again, I told you before, I don't feel, even to this day, that comfortable about telling people about my story. But look, I'll go through it very quickly. So at 16, I dropped out of school and I started going off on the wrong tangent, right? So yeah, started drinking, smoking, hanging out with the wrong people. And my mum, and I had a job. I left school and got a job. So it wasn't like I was not earning, but I guess I just decided that I was earning, I was growing up. I thought I was an adult. I wasn't. I was 16. And I started acting like an adult, but actually I was acting like a jerk. So mum kicked me out of home. Probably the best thing she could have done to me. She sort of packed my bag one day. I arrived back home late, and she said, "Here you go. If you're old enough to stay out all night or not come back home or not let us know what's going on, then you're old enough to live on your own. Here's your suitcase, son. Off you go." Great. That led to a series of years of drifting around and doing different things. Drinking too much, gambling too much, doing all the wrong things. But at the bottom of the end of that period of time, I did actually do a couple of things right. And one was, as I said, getting my pilot license, and the other was getting fit and playing rugby league, and then eventually rugby league for a fairly famous club in Brisbane, in Australia, and later on rugby union. Fast forward 10 years, other people have then kind of like gone through their probably bachelor's degree, got a master's degree, maybe, I don't know, gone further. I just got a lot of work experience. So in that 10 years ago, a really great amount of work experience doing different things, middle management experience, managing department, supervisory, that sort of stuff. And I got to a point where I realized that I lacked theory. I lacked the foundation about corporations, business management, that sort of stuff. And so I was in Sydney. I applied then to the University of Technology in Sydney, which was, oh, I don't know what we call that, a polytechnic. I mean, it was more of a technically based university. So they have what they call a mature age entry stream. I had to write a letter to the Dean of Business School, which I did, and get a few references, which I got. And lo and behold, I mean, I honestly gave no chance of me getting in. And I was shocked. My jaw just hit the floor when I got this letter from the university saying I'd been accepted. So had a bit of a problem, had to leave work, had to sort of quit my job, do full-time study for 3 years. Actually, it ended up being 3.5, full-time study, but I didn't have any money and my parents weren't able to support me. So I had to study by day and work by night, right? I kind of went from having a full-time job in the hotel business or hospitality business to being like working in the bar, cocktail bar, working as a waiter in the restaurant, working as a functions waiter in a banqueting setting, working a second job in a German restaurant because I could speak a bit of German. I was basically odd jobbing all over the place just to keep myself going. But again, great experience, got through my finance degree, and I literally, the day I finished, I got a call from the same hotel company I'd been working for, and it was the head of finance, like the financial controller or head of finance. And he said, look, I hear you've just finished your bachelor's degree and you majored in finance. I want to offer you a job at head office. Not one of the companies, hotels under head office, running the financial control area. And I thought, well, I learned about finance. I really haven't done it yet, but off I went, and so I did that. And I became very good at it, even though it wasn't my love. I mean, I may be good with numbers, but it kind of doesn't necessarily fulfill every part of me, or didn't fulfill every part of me, but I enjoyed it and I was very good at it. So off I went. And then that's what got me the job overseas. I was headhunted basically by head office to fill a position in a new hotel, which we had floated in. It was a floating hotel, so built on a barge, but a hotel on top. We floated in. We bought. No, we hadn't bought. We had the management contract to this hotel, which had been in the Barrier Reef in Australia, off Cairns, as a Four Seasons hotel, and it had been taken over or bought by a Japanese company called EIE Development, a very big property developer from Japan. And our company, the hotel company, had become the management, had got the management contract, and they had a new manager coming in, general manager, and they wanted someone to run the finance and be like the number two in case anything happened to the general manager. I would be there. So I went over, packed my bags, and off I went. And during this time, I was literally taken from being the financial controller to being the general manager. So I kind of like started as financial controller, ended up as general manager. And that was my awakening. That period of time formed me into someone who had a lot of belief in their management skills, marketing skills, sales skills, because I had to do everything. I had to do sales and marketing. I ran the operation in terms of personnel, operational side. I ran the financial side, and I ran the relationship side. I had a relationship with the CEO of the management company. I had to deal with the CEO of the ownership company. I had a full-time owner's representative on board looking over my shoulder. I had a Vietnamese partner onshore who was actually trying to undermine me. So I had basically to learn how to juggle stakeholder responsibilities from all different aspects, and yet still kind of keep everyone happy, and yet, at the same time, get in there, motivate my team, and keep on picking up the revenue and the profitability and just keep on turning out better ROI every year, which I did. So no wonder that I kind of realized then that I can do more, right? That's the sort of person I am. Take on a big risk or take on a big project or take on a big goal, succeed, take on the next big goal, make it even bigger, succeed, keep on going, right? Carry on. So I set myself up for a life as an entrepreneur after 3 years in corporate life, started my first company, and then did a series of projects, joint ventures in Vietnam, was a very well-known and widely used consultant. I had some Fortune 500, some Fortune 100 companies. I consulted to governments. I consulted to different corporate sectors. You know, I was a consultant for the IFC from Washington, hotel consultant for them, Asian Development Bank, different big banks. It was an amazing amount of experience that I gathered in a very short period of time. And I love Vietnam. I still love Vietnam. I still have a love for the country and the people because it was such a great time for me, and I learned such a lot. It made me who I am today in many respects. Fast forward to 2003, I'd started a new project in Geneva, Monaco and Geneva, as a partner in a foreign exchange company. So the person who I met, who actually had a long history running foreign exchange trading strategies, hugely successful man, amazing man, very intelligent. I joined him in the sense of forming a new partnership, and my job was to go and get the money, right, to raise capital for the pool of money to trade. And we'd kind of like gone from doing okay to doing really well, growing massively, and that had involved a huge amount of travel. So every month I would probably be traveling at least 1 to 2 weeks in a month. Some periods it'd be 2 to 3 weeks, and so always flying, always under stress, always under time zone stress, getting deals done stress, that sort of thing. So yeah, 2003, I literally was at home on a Sunday. I still get emotional about this. And I had my 18-month-old son with me, Brendan. And I started feeling a bit, I don't know, tired, funny, whatever. I thought I'd better lie down because I didn't feel well. I got him with me and I kind of brought him into the bedroom, lay down. And then I woke up and I knew I'd been somehow unconscious because I was, lather with sweat, feeling really weird, and the sun wasn't there. And I sort of staggered out, couldn't even think straight to call the ambulance or the emergency services. So I managed to dial the number for my mother-in-law and told her I wasn't feeling well. And they came in. Luckily, they had a spare key. They found me on the floor and called the ambulance. And by the time I was in the ambulance on the way to the hospital, which is only about 300, 400 meters away, I flatlined, right? My heart stopped beating the first time. I don't remember anything other than making the phone call to my mother-in-law and then waking up 5 hours, 4.5, 5 hours later. That's the next memory I have. In that time, I flatlined 6 times, each time progressively longer. The last time was about 1:20 or 1:20 something, almost 1:30 before they got me back. And yeah, so I woke up in an operating theater where the doctor, where the head of the whole hospital and head of the heart, but certainly the surgery, whatever that's called, head of surgery, was sticking pacemaker, meaning had literally put or was poking two wires into my jugular vein without any kind of anesthetic, or there was no, I wasn't knocked out. I wasn't they couldn't afford to give me an anesthetic and make me unconscious to do it. They were doing it with a local painkiller. Yeah. So anyway, died technically 6 times, came back to life, and had the most expensive helicopter ride in my life, 30,000 euros to take an army helicopter from my town to Munich to a heart specialist clinic. Was in intensive care for almost 2 weeks and was basically on, as they say, a knife edge because they didn't know whether I was going to live or die. Doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong. Tried everything they knew and some. My poor wife had to fly back from Vietnam all the way back to Germany. In those days, that wasn't easy. It took 2 days. Came back when I was, arrived back when I was in Munich. And no one knew what was wrong. So I was only 43. I had just about died. And back then, all they could say was, well, that's the end of your career, right? That's the end of your business life because, you know, we're going to have to give you, put you on beta blockers for the rest of your life. And, oh, the side effects for beta blockers, by the way, are, well, sterility, thin blood, you know, so if you cut yourself badly, you might bleed to death, depression, mood swings, besides depression. There was 5 or 6 wonderful side effects. And I thought, you know, I wasn't ready to give up. I wasn't ready to stop life and become, I don't know, sort of a semi-retired hermit at 43. So my wife and I discussed it, and we pushed the hospital, the clinic, the guy. We said, why can't I get a pacemaker, a heart pacemaker? And he said, because your heart is, your heart valves, you know, your valves, your heart is not affected. It's not, you don't have blocked arteries or blocked valves or whatever it might be. Your heart is not likely to stop physically. And we said, well, how can that be when it just did, right? I mean, hello, duh. So long story short, against their better judgment and everything else, I got my first pacemaker. I've had 3 since then. But by doing that, I took back my life, right? I took back my control or the control over my life. And I haven't stopped. It allowed me to do things, play sport, you know, go running, go jogging, do all the things that you can do when you're fully functional and not have to live a life of, well, I can't do this, I can't do that. So yeah, that was a period of my life that was important. Now, fast forward to 2020, when COVID hit. I know that it's been very hard for a lot of people. It's actually been hard for many different reasons, but to me, it's just been one more crisis. And yes, I had difficulty too. I went into a period of a few months where I didn't really understand how bad it was going to be or what I should do. And after that, I realized it was going to be bad and it was time to change. And I did some pivoting and did some modifications, updated my business model, went totally online like everyone else has done, and adjusted and adapted. And that's fine. But in terms of crises, I mean, if you're old enough, you remember that, you know, this is one of many. There was the, back in 93, there was SARS, 2003, there was SARS, right? Before that, I've even gone through one in Asia called the Asian financial crisis, which not everyone went through, but that was when the Thai baht plummeted. And if you're in Southeast Asia, which we were, that was a crisis. But SARS is what people actually remember probably as the first one. Then there was the global financial crisis, right? The GFC in 2008, 2009. So, I mean, the way I looked at it last year is that you just have to get help if you're not sure. And I got help. My wife and I went to an event and decided to right there and then sign up for a mentorship program, meaning we hired a team of mentors, a team of business people, successful business people, to become our mentors and guide us into this new business model that I'm now using. Good. It was very expensive. We're talking about a 6-figure amount that we paid, but we got access to people like Kevin Harrington, formerly from Shark Tank. And The other team members are all very good in their own right, so it was worth it. But the point is, you have a chance, right? When a crisis comes along, you can either freeze, like do nothing, put your head in the sand and hope it's just gonna blow over, or see a silver lining, like look at it as being an opportunity and try and position yourself for growth within that chaos, so that after the chaos normalizes, if it normalizes, you're so strong that you're going to be a leader. And that's what we did. And I think that's what a lot of startups who've come in and started their companies last year during COVID and this year, that's what they're doing. They're making a play for, well, it's chaotic right now, so in the middle of chaos, this is going to work really well. And if they get that right, man, they're going to be so strong when COVID, as we know it, perhaps dies down, or we get through it to the point where we open up and the economies start to kind of like go together again. So yeah, it's an exciting time. It's been a scary time. It's an exciting time. It's still a difficult time for many, and people have lost their jobs and businesses have closed down. And I feel really, really, really sad, for people who've gone through that. But for those who are maybe on the call today and you're starting a company, it may be that you lost your job and you're starting a company as a result of that. Good on you. And that's why I think it's an exciting time, and we should all be basically taking the positives out of this and saying, wow, this is it, let's get going, right? So as a business builder, I guess my scorecard is something like, yeah, I say 10 countries. That's where I've done business. I mean, I've been to about 60, but done business in starting up companies in about 10 countries. Started them up, got to multiple millions in annual recurring revenue. These were not companies as we know it now. This is like pre-internet or post-internet, but not tech companies, not subscription-based companies. All the companies I did up until the last 5 years were what we call brick and mortar companies, right? Businesses where you had physical locations, but still able to get revenue up, still able to have multiple locations, cross-border. And as an angel investor, my individual portfolio is up around seven or eight actual investments in the last couple of years. But I've helped at least 50 startups over the last 5 years, either completely get fundraising or I've added something to their fundraise. Sometimes it was like I literally ran the fundraise. Other times it was just I was helping them, advising them, bringing in some to investors, talking about term sheets and that sort of stuff. Intermittent or ad hoc consultancy, but 50 or more, I've lost count. And so in terms of my fundraising, call it financing, whatever, I have a number around about 150 in my head of how much money I've actually been responsible for raising, meaning I have literally bought in the investor and said, here, meet startup. So around about 135 investors over the last 5 years, 7 years, 6 years, probably, I think more accurately, have come through me, have been using me as the conduit to get to the startup, or I've gone out as it's like I said, the startup has hired me to go out and do the fundraising. So I then go out and bring in people I know, or sometimes they've just been referrals and I've not known. And this is what you have to do sometimes. You have to go outside of your existing network and comfort zone and just do it as a process. All right. So I'm going to skip through this one. And I'm going to try and get straight into the 5 steps process. Yeah. I will say this though, if you think about this, what really is the benefit to you is, like I said a few slides ago, if we work together, you'll get on with running your business, doing the sales, doing the product, doing what you have to do, and I'll get on with actually organizing the fundraise. That's how I work on this fundraising as a service, full service product or service. So it is a best of both worlds. You get to focus on what you need to do. I get to focus on what needs to be done for fundraising. We come together and sort of integrate at parts during that whole cycle so that you have to talk to the investors, obviously, and pitch the investors. But I set it up. You get to just basically take the meetings, pitch, close, and then I'll help you with the closing part, the term sheets, negotiation, getting the money in, following up, making sure they actually write the check, send the money, transfer the money, and then getting the money in the bank, and then basically close the round and off you go. So it's a good combination of strengths where you get to do what you do and like, and I get to do what I do and like, and together divide and conquer, right? And just so that we talk about this later on, just so you understand what I use in this whole fundraising thing, there's a couple of different terminologies. One is do it yourself, or DIY, you know, from basically hardware stores and handyman stores. And the other one is DFY, done for you. So do it yourself or done for you. So either you're a person who kind of knows a little bit about fundraising or somehow feels comfortable in this sector, in this area, has maybe a finance degree or comes from a finance background, so isn't overwhelmed by all the jargon or terminology that you get from the investor side. You might be very, very quick to learn stuff. And so maybe one of my, or the main do-it-yourself package that I've got, which we can talk about later, where I basically set you up with a lot of templates and just give you the guidance that you need to implement, and you just go and follow what I give you in terms of advice. That could be a good help for you. It's sort of a small starter pack just to boost your knowledge, accelerate your knowledge and learning. Or, and this is what I find most people think at the time, you may be one of those people who says, no, I'm happy to trade and get my time back and, you know, put someone else on the job and get them to do the fundraising, majority of the fundraising. It's going to cost me some money. I know that, but what I get is I get my time. And so for you, or for that sort of mindset, the done for you, I call it fundraising as a service, FAS. That's the best solution because you get to do what you want and I get to do what I'm best at. Normally I'd take a break, but I think we're okay for time. I'm going to kick on. We're going to finish a bit early. I'm going to open it up for questions if there is any, and then give you the information that I have about how to contact me. And after that, we'll end. Okay, so let's go through the what I call 5 steps trademark system. And the 5 steps, the word steps stands for strategize, test, excite, pitch, and secure. So let me ask you this. Fundraising, to me, is really a sales process. And I think most of you have done sales. If you're in business, if you're running a business, if you're owning a business, at some point, you either are the main salesperson or you've had to at least understand enough and done enough to get someone to take over the sales role. In either case, you understand what I'm talking about when we talk about a sales funnel. Sales funnels, when we get our prospects in the top, right? The raw prospects, a lot of people, they go in the top of the funnel, and then step by step or level by level, we filter them down, we filter them down, we filter them down until at the end, or the bottom, the narrow end of the funnel, they're the ones who either we want as customers or they self-select themselves as customers because we're a good fit. So think of fundraising like selling. You would need to have, in this case, at the start, at the top of your funnel, at least 300, right? 300 investors, not just any investors. I'm talking about 300 investors who have said or proven that they invest in your sector or your vertical within your sector. So if your company's in fintech, but your business model is SaaS, software as a service, then I'm talking about 300 investors, angel plus VC, who actually have invested before in fintech and to specifically say, that they love SaaS. 300. Okay, why 300? Because we start there. We then go through a screening process. We look at deep dive on each investor to make sure that they invest in your country, your geography, your market. Some investors say that they invest globally, but when you do a deep dive, when you go deep down, you find that they say, except we don't invest in, like certain countries, whatever. Now, one thing we've noticed since COVID is that companies that used to say that they don't invest globally now look at global deals. They may be Silicon Valley based, but all of a sudden they're open to companies that are incorporated in Singapore or Philippines, Malaysia, where the product or the service that that company from Asia has maybe at the moment being sold in the local market or maybe within the region in Asia, but it's applicable to a global client base. So that's the caveat, right? So we're going to go through, we're going to screen those 300. We may find that there's some companies that don't have any current funds. They didn't raise capital for the last 2 years. They have changed their focus. What they said they do, they don't do. So there's many reasons why the number might come down from 300 to 250. So then from the 250, if we start with that, we may be lucky with that, right? We may be lucky with that, but at least the idea is we're going to come through, we're going to start the process of outreach. We're going to eventually get feedback. We're going to get people accepting our request for outreach and warming up. The numbers might drop. You're never going to get 100% all the way through. And so bottom line is, if we end up with, say, if we're good enough to get 100 at the start of the fundraising proper, that are actually aware of what we're after, say they're interested, ask for us to send them a term sheet or at least terms or an offer, and are ready to engage, then we should be able to get at least 20 of the 100, right? Worst case, to exchange a bit of paper, and then depending how many we actually need to fill the round. Like if we need 20 to fill the round, okay, not so easy. I always want to oversubscribe the round. I'll say that again. In my in my estimation and understanding, the only way that you're going to guarantee to get all the money you want is to oversubscribe the round, to have 20 investors issuing term sheets when you can actually fill the round with 10 investors, 100% oversubscribed. So that's where we're aiming for, right? Filtering, and then double the amount of people you really need, give you term sheets, you then negotiate the term sheets, you accept the term sheets that you want, that you find okay, the people you want to work with, you sign off on those term sheets, you get the people with those term sheets into legal, into documents, into money, and you close, right? That's it, that's the big picture. So it's, at that level, it's a simple sales funnel process. But of course, the devil's in the detail, right? It's never as easy as it seems. The original, I must mention, right, a shout out on this particular visual, the original design idea, although it wasn't quite like this, but it comes from a great guy. I really admire his work and what he does. A gentleman by the name of Nathan Beckord, who is the founder and CEO of an amazing tool called Founder Suite, which I use. All right. So in terms of time, right? Let's say in terms of 100% being the total time, I spend my time on a fundraise this way: 5% pre-planning, like that's just time spent with the founder. Even maybe not with the founder, but at the point of negotiation, strategizing, backward and forward communication. Another 10%, right? Planning with the founder, the team, setting up if you're using something like pivotal tracker or some sort of project management software, planning it, putting in all the points, all the milestones, getting it right. Basically making sure that you've covered all the things you need to do at the start. And also in the strategizing session or the strategizing period, we're also doing things like getting all of our documentation, right? The entire document set prepared and put into, I still use Dropbox. A lot of investors still prefer Dropbox or something like that, not Google Drive or something like that. We want it off Google into something like Dropbox or some sort of digital vault. All that, getting that ready and getting all your messages ready, all the messages you're going to send out before you even start to contact a single person. So, okay, we've filtered everything down. We've got the number we now need. We have a call list. Then you'd start testing your messaging. What I mean by that is you would reach out. You'd be saying things like, and the way I'll show you later on how I do it, but I start by saying, I contact the investors in the list of the people I want to have finally on board. And I usually ask them whether they will be happy for me to add them to the founders list to send them a very short investor update. Now, this only works when you've got about a 6 to 7 month window in which to raise money. If you are leaving it so late that you need money in 2 months or 3 months time before you're going to run out, your runway is that short, this is not going to work. And honestly, you're going to have a hard time. The best time to start fundraising is the day you open the company. You literally should be planning for your seed or pre-seed round then, because it can take, as I said, 6 months, 9 months. But here's the benefit of having a longer time frame to raise money. It means that you can play this game. You can create a relationship between you and the investor where the first message they get is not, "Hi, Mr. Investor, we're this great new startup that's got this amazing product or service and we're going to disrupt the blah, blah, blah sector." They've heard it a million times before, yawn, yawn. Your first message is, "Look, I know you're very busy. I really respect your time. I'd like to add you to our monthly update list. I want to continue to send you updates. I promise they'll be short, they'll be to the point. And I'd just love to be, I'd love you to get them because we know this company that we have does fit into your area of interest and we think it would make a great addition to your portfolio, but you're not asking for money." Now, guess what? Most, if not all investors will say, "Okay, add me to your list." And guess what? Most, if not all investors will read your updates. And if you do what you say, and if you are getting traction, and if each month you're showing milestones and the story is compelling, if you do that for 3 months, and on the 4th month, you open up your fundraising and say, "Oh, look, I've been sending you my updates for a few months now. By the way, we're now ready to do our seed round, Series A, but mainly probably seed round. I wondered if you could tell me, are you interested? Would you consider investing in us? And if so, how much do you normally write as a check? What's your normal investment size? What do you like to see?" And if they're a venture capital company, you'd be saying something additionally like, "Look, I know you're a lead investor, a lead VC. We'd really love to get you on board as our lead. That'd make us so proud and so happy to be having your company as our lead investor." But basically, you're going out there and you're asking them to give you an idea, an expression of interest, some sort of feedback. And you're updating your list, aren't you? You're updating your list in your CRM to say, "Okay, talk to so-and-so. They're definitely interested. They want a term sheet sent to them," and then making sure you send them. So isn't that much easier than just pitching from day one to people who don't even know you from a bar of soap and get pitched every day? You have to understand, venture capital investors in particular, they will see 2,000 to 3,000 pitch decks a year. Work out how many that is per day. And, you know, it gets boring. I'm sorry to say, if you're in their shoes, it's up to you, the investor, to get their attention by doing something right, by making their life easier, or by offering them something that they don't have. It's not up to them to give you time. It's not how it works. So, you've got to learn to play the game and understand what they need if you want their money. That's the bottom line. So pitching straight away, like on day one, biggest waste of time ever, and you will get nothing, zero. You'll get the luck of maybe one in, I don't know, a few hundred saying out of some crazy reason, okay, I just saw this, I just happened to open it, seems okay, I'll respond. But not because they're like literally thinking of you as being the next best thing. It's just that they for whatever reason, had time, picked up that message, opened it, they saw something, they responded. But you can't work on that basis. That's not an effective strategy to get 100% of the money you want for your round. So when pitching does happen, you condense it. You condense the pitches into hopefully no more than 3 weeks. So if you say, let's say 100 of the 300 investors told you they wanted to receive your deck and, receive your deck and offer when you start the fundraise. So 100 investors, look, you should be taking 10 to 20, if not 30, trying to get 10, 20, 30 if you have to investor calls a day. So it could take you 10 days. It might take you 5 days, for first calls and maybe follow-up calls. But even if it takes you 2 to 3 weeks, no more, right? Don't take it any longer. 2 to 3 weeks, have all of your investor calls done, have your follow-up calls done, and have your term sheets either sent or received so that you can be within a month at a point where you can close. That's my recommendation to you. Now, of course, having done all that, right, and having the luxury of having more term sheets than you need or more investor pledges than you actually want to raise, you can do two things. You could always increase the size of the round and raise more than you actually thought about raising, but have to adjust all of your numbers to show the appropriate returns and where the money will be used. But the other thing is you can just close on the amount that you actually talked about raising, tell some of those people they missed out, and promise them that they will get the very first opportunity when you're doing the next round. So if this is a seed round, you basically promise them that they are guaranteed a slot in your Series A round. They might not like it, but believe me, they'll be there for the Series A. And that's why oversubscribing is the best strategy to make sure you get this round completely raised and you get next round completely raised, because the flow over, right? The flow over, the overflow from this round gets your 20 to 30%, maybe even higher, secured for the following round. And that, my friends, is a great foundation to build on. Okay, moving on, and I'm aware of the time. It's I'll definitely try and stop before running over, but it's going to be touch and go. So look, we've got 5 steps. I've just talked about it orally about what I do in each area. But I think of important note here is that in this first stage, you really need to do a lot of preparation. And one of the documents you're going to get for free after this webinar is a list of all the things you need to prepare. There's a giant list of things you need to prepare for a fundraise. It's not as simple as you think, but I've listed it in one of the free documents you're going to get when you join our Facebook group, again for free. So I wouldn't go into too much detail, but definitely the idea is prepare ahead. Prepare all your documents now before you start reaching out to investors, so that when they are interested and they say after the call, great, I love the idea, can you give me access to your data room or to your documents or to your due diligence or whatever they want to call it, you can say, yes, of course, here's the link. Simple, done, everything in order. Yeah? All right. And I think here, the only thing I would say that I'd like to point out, and I pointed it out, I talked about it much, much earlier, is you've got to decide which category of investor is your natural fit. Because, like I said, not every company is suited to venture capital. Certainly not every company is suited to family offices. FO stands for family offices. But many companies are suited to angel investing and corporate venture capital, which is another way of saying like big companies who have like their own business, but they have within the company a section or a division which invests in other companies. That's a corporate venture capital, CVC. Even channel partners. Like sometimes you might think you need to raise passive investment from a lot of people, but I've created solutions for clients before where we got all the capital they needed from channel partners. I mean, literally from buyers or suppliers, right? So there's many different ways to get the money you need. You just have to figure out who is the best fit, where's the largest amount of synergy, and once you understand what you can give to, what the value is that you give, it's sort of like just a case of going and asking sometimes, and turning a supplier into an investor, or a large importer distributor into an investor. Best of both worlds there, right? Okay, Excite. I think the important part there, I'll just focus on this one down the bottom, is that if you're raising more than $500,000, like let's say it's $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million, $2.5 million. If it's way over $500,000 and closer to $1 million, then it may be a little bit too much, maybe I say, to get all from an angel investor group, like a series of angels. A lot of angel investors write checks, meaning they invest in sizes of something like 15,000, 20, 25, maybe 30,000. That's quite a common size. Now there are angels that might invest in amounts of 50,000 or 100,000 or even a couple of 100,000, but they're less. Like there's fewer of those than there are that invest in smaller amounts. So, go figure, right? You're raising $1 million, $25,000 per, or 20,000 per, make it easy. That would mean you'd have to get 50 investors if there are only angels. 50 investors to say yes all at the same time and get their money into the pot at the same time. That's a big exercise. So if it's a larger amount that you're raising, like I said, I'm talking about $1 million or more. I've said more than $500,000, but realistically, $1 million is probably the threshold. You're going to need to get either a corporate partner who can invest, say, a large amount, like 300, 400, 500,000, or if your company happens to be a company that fits into the venture capital scheme, into their business model, you need to get a lead venture capital investor. So, okay, venture capital companies, there's kind of like two classifications. Some of them lead, meaning if they decide to invest in you, they will be the first ones to negotiate a deal, a price or terms of the investment. They will therefore put their money in first, but here's the catch. They will also want to be involved in making up or filling the rest of the round from other investors, and likely many of them will have relationships with other venture capital companies and more or less say to you, we will go and get 3 or 4 or 5 of our co-investors to invest with us on terms which we decide, which will be okay to you. And hence, you kind of like, once you've done the first bit and getting angel investors to invest up to a certain amount, and then a lead VC comes in and says they're going to basically bring in the rest, you just have to wait for that to happen and actively engage and be there. But that can fill you around. So there's a plus and a minus. The problem is there's not many lead VCs. In my experience, there's probably less than 10% of all the registered VCs in the world are actually lead VCs. So you've got to find out. You've got to ask the question, are you a lead VC? If they don't say on their website, I'm a lead VC. You've got to ask, you've got to find out. You've got to cross-reference. You've got to look at deals they've done. But for large raises, you need to have one on board, either a lead VC or like a corporation, a company, to take up the gap, to take up the slack, because raising big amounts in small chunks takes too long and sometimes doesn't get finalized, because by the time you get some to come in, the ones who decided or wanted to come in at the start have gone, right? Or gone cold. And so it never finishes, it never completes. Pitching is pitching. It's not really anything that everyone does. It's not a natural thing. And you do have to practice. Believe me, if you think you can just get your pitch deck, create a pitch deck, get some investor meetings in your diary, and then take those meetings and somehow succeed in convincing them to invest, no chance. No chance. Zip, nada, zero. Pitch deck for a start will not be the first deck you do won't be the last deck. If you don't do 5 to 10 iterations, meaning variations, there's something wrong. I mean, literally, you should be finding out flaws, changing it because someone makes comments, updating it, refining it, getting it tighter, cutting out words. It's got to be at least 5 to 10 versions before it's probably ready to send out. And you have to start pitching. You have to pitch your friends. You have to pitch your families. You've got to pitch some smaller investors. You've got to pitch until that pitch is basically second nature, meaning not that it shouldn't get to the point where you've done it so many times that you turn off. I mean, you get so good at doing it that you can become animated, that you can become engaging, that you can use tone and voice and body language, that you can really, it's almost like a theater, like a play, that you're up on stage, because that energy, that engagement, that one-to-one, and that quick thinking, that being able to answer questions like that, just because you know everything about that inside and out, that's what will get you people engaged. That's what will get them hooked. That's what will convince them to invest in you and not one of the other 199 or 198 startups. So you got to practice, 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 like anything else, like any other skill in life. Practice like your life depends on it. And don't wait until your first call with an investor to think, oh, I wonder, how long is it going to take me to do this presentation? Oh, the meeting's 20 minutes. Oh, I should have enough time. You get to slide 7 and 20 minutes has gone by. You didn't get to the major slide, which was traction. Dead, end of story, bye-bye. I mean, that's what's going to happen, right? So no, practice, practice, and then practice some more. And then I think the only thing I'd point out here is that just because you've done term sheets, exchange term sheets, and just because you've sent them legal documents, if you don't follow up, right? If you don't follow up the investors and say you send the documents out on a Monday and basically have sent with that document, by the way, by DocuSign or some sort of a electronic document server, a document service, not email. But let's say it was sent out on Monday. You've got to be sending out an email saying the document's been sent. Please verify you've got it. And can you give me a time frame of when you'll have it back, right? Signed. Maybe that means he's got to run it, or she's got to run it through legal department or outside legal counsel. But we need to know, right? And then you need to follow up. If it doesn't come back on the day they say, you've got to follow up. The job's not done and the money's not in the bank until they've signed those documents, sent them back, and you've signed them, and then they can actually send off the money or drop the check in the mail. So I've seen so many fundraising journeys basically just about die, just about falter, because the founder or the advisor did not follow up and push the people past the point, over the line until the money was in the bank. Don't do that. Background noise, I could die. I'm afraid I'm working from home and you're about to get some noise that's going to interrupt this a little bit, but it is what it is. All right. Right. Okay. So success is a step away. All I'm going to say is what you need to succeed are three things, right? A proven system, an exceptional mentor, and a community of support and resources. And that's what you get with me and my team. That's all I'm saying. Okay. These are all very nice. Sometimes you have to learn that some of these things that you create for yourself, when you've covered things before, you don't have to just keep on plugging through. I just realized that most of that stuff I've covered previously out of order, but it is what it is, right? Okay, good. We've done most of that. All right, let's just finish there. Do a quick recap. Um, I'm gonna get you to copy down, or if I'll just copy this and put it in the chat. This is the actual link to. Okay, got to find chat first. All right. No, didn't work. Uh, some reason I'm not seeing that as a link. No. Ah, the things that don't seem to work. Why would that not work? Okay. I'm going out of screen share. I know I'm not. I'm actually just going out of presentation mode. James is having a bit of a moment here. Now I can do it. So this again is the Facebook link. Sorry, Facebook group link. Get it right, James. Yep, Facebook group link. Just put into chat. And if you click that, you'll come to my Bulletproof Fundraising Facebook page. And I think you may have to, I think you should be able to join without asking, but let's say you have to ask, just do what it is, you sort of click a link and say, I want to join, and I'll approve that. But I think it's actually done now, so you just join. And once you're in there, you're going to see around about 10 documents, 10 free documents that you can upload, download, templates, hacks, information sheets, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, knock yourself out, help yourself, and I'm sure they're going to be useful. And I'll start. Sorry, I'll end by saying that if this has, if the whole content of this has kind of like got you thinking about what you're doing or how you're doing it, if you've started your fundraise, what progress you're making and maybe why. If you haven't started your fundraise, if it's given you some clarity and focus about what maybe you have now as an alternative to doing it yourself, I would just suggest it's worth at least 30 minutes of your time to have a chat with me. So here's a link. Again, the easiest way is to probably just copy it, and I'll do that right now. This is my calendar link, online calendar. So if you click on that and book a time with me, you can discuss whether or not you'd like to look at using what I call my do-it-yourself package, which is just a bundle of templates and useful hacks other than what I've just put up on Facebook, or if you'd like to discuss what it means to use me as your, let's say, full service supplier. I call it fundraising as a service, a done for you service. Then we can discuss how that works, the pricing, time, responsibilities, the full 9 yards. Both can be discussed using that link. But just book yourself a call, half an hour. We can run longer if we need more time. Probably 30 minutes is enough to figure out what we need to do. And if you didn't get it, if you haven't got it, then maybe just make a note of my phone number in Singapore. I'm coming to you today from Singapore, so 65 is country code 9487 and 7290, or James at jamesspurway.com, and that's also the website. And also look me up on LinkedIn. And reach out and make a connection request, and I'll connect with you on LinkedIn. Or follow me if you like, or whatever. But I'm happy to be connected on LinkedIn. We can also chat on LinkedIn. I'm not as regular as I used to be with my posting and stuff, but usually a couple of times a week, I'm throwing something useful up there on LinkedIn. I'm not a firm believer or a big believer in daily posting like Gary Vee tells me to do, but when I've got something useful, I mean, honestly useful for you, not promotion for me, I'll post. Otherwise, rather not. Okay, love you and leave you. Thank you for coming today. I hope you got something out of that. I hope it's become at least a focus for your thoughts. Good luck with whatever you're doing. I think you're amazing being entrepreneurs. Starting a company is crazy. Like, who do that? Insane, but more power to you. More power to you. All right, that's it for me. I'll stop the share, and I'll get off this live feed, this stream. Ciao. Take it easy. Take care. See you soon. Bye.